All right, welcome everybody to the Golden Belt Buckle podcast. And if you're joining me now, you're not going to want to miss this episode. I hope you stay. My second to last video is almost at 100,000 views so far, and this one is much more substantive. So if you enjoyed that one, then you definitely want to stay for this one. And if you haven't watched that one yet, then go see what all the fuss is all about. Now, I know most of my listeners are American, and you might think, well, what does Canadian stuff have to do with the United States? It's got a lot to do with the United States. Same way your issues in the trucking industry affect us. Because like I said in my last video, you guys send your drivers up here, right? They get on our freeways. If your American companies have authorization to run in Canada, they can send anybody they want up here as long as they have their CDL. Due to reciprocity, I say that right? Reciprocity laws. So likewise, we can do the same thing to you. So in my last video, I mentioned that the CBC had done an amazing job blowing the lid off of the corruption in the Canadian trucking industry, in particular licensing, right? How people get their licenses. And, you know, cards on the table, I vote Conservative. I don't have much faith in any politician at this point, but I typically vote Conservative. And as a Conservative, I'm not supposed to give the CBC any kudos, but I think that's just being stubborn. I believe in giving credit where credit is due. And in that spirit, I have to give them credit for the documentary they did. It was last October. Actually, it was October 2024, they did a Marketplace documentary where they went undercover in Brampton to expose the corruption that was going on in truck licensing facilities, driver schools. And what they showed, and I'll put links in the description, they showed that the mandatory entry-level training, which is supposed to be 103.5 hours, 32 of which is behind the steering wheel time and the rest is supposed to be in class. They showed how schools were compressing it. And so they were compressing the 103.5 hours into, well, not 103.5 hours, right? How they were doing this is they were taking 3 students at a time and they were putting them in one truck. And whether or not you were driving, that was all counting towards your 103.5 hours. So when you're driving, that counts as your 32 hours. When you're sitting there watching someone else drive, that also counts to your 103.5 hours. And in some cases, they were caught bribing CIRCA officials. CIRCA is the private company that's been contracted by the MTO to do the driver tests. So it's privately done. So they were caught bribing. An employee had come forward and even the CEO had put out a letter about the corruption that was going on, and so they've had to clean their own house. So we brought them in. It was under the Harris government, and regardless of what anyone tells you, I don't care who blames who, it was the Conservatives that brought this private company in, and no one has done anything about it since the 90s. There have been liberal and conservative governments. No one has done anything about it. They've kept everything the same, so anyone blaming someone else, it's all just political theater. What this showed was there had been a context of corruption going on in the Brampton area, and it's probably not just the Brampton area. They're just the ones that got caught. They're the ones that got exposed. There had been a lot of corruption that industry insiders already knew, right? Anyone who does road tests probably already knew. I saw some quotes on I think it was Reddit and some truck news articles that were released before this CBC documentary. But until the CBC shines a light on something in Canada, it just seems like people, I don't know, it takes mainstream media to get people moving. And I find that's fascinating, actually, on a number of levels. But that's what happened. So they blew the lid off of it. And in that context, if I'm forgetting, and I got my notes right here, and I have glasses, so just bear with me. I'm going to wear these. As a result of this CBC investigation, I got to mention, a little bit after it, the government pledged to do an investigation because they had no choice now. And they did do such an investigation so that July 11th, so within 6 months of this documentary being put out, the MTO ordered, I didn't get the number, it was a lot, like a lot of people. They were ordered to retake their road tests due to irregularities that internal audits from the MTO had found. So let me clear this up. Up until, well, it was at least 2023, Ontario's Auditor General put a report out saying that schools just had to self-report, right? If there was inconsistencies, they just had to self-report to the government as to how they corrected those inconsistencies, right? Well, fast forward to 2025, this auditing was stepped up a lot more. I can't give you exact numbers, okay? I don't have that. I didn't get those exact numbers, but the auditing was stepped up a lot more, to the point where a whole bunch of drivers who had already been working for over a year doing long haul work had to go back in. They had to bring their own truck in to do a road test, and if they failed, they had to arrange their own transportation to get back home. So, all right, so we could just leave it there, or we could connect the dots a little bit further. I'll go a little bit deeper, and let's talk about a couple cases, right? Because context matters. So this report took place in Brampton. Let's talk about a fellow named Harjit Singh. All right, Harjit Singh, I know I look funny in my reading glasses. Harjit Singh, he was licensed to drive in early 2023. He's still here, he's in jail on a student visa. He was licensed in Brampton, again, in 2023, before this report by the CBC blew the lid off the corruption. So in the context of all this corruption, of people bribing, of people having their mandatory entry-level training hours crammed into a short amount of time, just really awful training. In this context, Harjit Singh received his license in Brampton, and then not long after that, he was guilty of a hit and run in Quebec, which almost wiped out an entire family. So he ran a stop sign, and he got T-boned. His truck got T-boned by a family of 5. And I'm going to post some photographs of some of this stuff wherever I can find it. And he ran away. He did what I believe that Harjit Singh would have done in Florida. He took off. And within 10 kilometers, he got nabbed by the OPP. And there's actually a video of him running away. There's a video of him driving away. And shocking, in court, he needed a translator to tell the court in Punjab that, translate from Punjab to English, that he ran because he was afraid. But that's a criminal offense. Fleeing the scene of an accident is a criminal offense, and it can get you deported. And it's unlikely that he will ever become a citizen here from what I read. I could be wrong. However, what was his penalty for this? He got a whole 1 year in prison for running a stop sign and almost wiping out an entire family. The mom and dad were both ejected from the van. They're both messed up to this day. And the kids, they had to see all this. And there's one picture of one of the sons, I believe, in the hospital. So that's what he did. He got 1 year in prison, and he got an 18-month driver's license suspension. So he's not allowed to operate a semi-truck for almost 2 years, year and a half. That's that's our justice system for it. Bear in mind, we just also heard of a guy who got arrested and charged because he beat the snot out of a home invader, right? That's Canada. If you're American watching this, and I'm sure you are, that's how things work up here. And then, so that's the first guy. And in the second instance, we got this other fella, Mandeep, sometimes pronounced Mandeep Singh. He was also licensed in Brampton, and in 2022, he was on the 401 texting, and I got the video. Matt Walsh in the States there, I'm sure you're all familiar with Matt Walsh. He put the video out showing this guy just driving along, and he just wipes these people right out, just smashes in the back of this. He did kill a grandmother and her 2 grandchildren while he was looking at his phone. And he was charged with criminal negligence causing death, 3 counts. And that was in Maitland, Ontario. And for killing 3 people He got, so this guy, by the way, he was also a student visa. He got 5 whole years in prison. So both of these guys are here on student visas. They're not even citizens. They're not even permanent residents. They're driving semi-trucks. They were trained in this context of corruption in Brampton. And then, voila, they both, one almost wipes out a family. The other one does wipe out a family, a grandmother and her 2 grandkids. And that's the context. That's the dots being connected. So when you have someone come to you and they say, people are dying because of what's going on here in Canada, this is what they're talking about. Now, here's the thing. I remember years ago, Justin Trudeau, he said he wanted Canada to have like 100 million citizens, and he said we're going to import or have a whole bunch of like the East Indians and Middle Easterners, like people just come on over to Canada, right? And he said, Canada is going to get a tan, right? Canada is going to get a tan. I can't do an impression of him. That's what he said. It's time we get a tan. And so he did start bringing immigrants over, hundreds and thousands of immigrants. And these immigrants happen to need a job. They want to get permanent residency and they want to get citizenship. I don't blame them. Playing the cards they're dealt. So they come over here, and it just so happens the job that is most easily available for them to get into is truck driving. It's an easy job to get into. It pays well. It's fairly steady. So if you want to become a permanent resident, this is a good job to be in. However, they come over here and they get their license, obviously like this context in an AZ mill, and there's a real naivety as to how dangerous this job is. And obviously our government had a naivety how dangerous this job is, right? The idea that any monkey can drive a truck, right? So they get into this career that is one of the most dangerous careers you can get into. They're not familiar with our roads. They come from a culture where the lines on the road are just a suggestion, where the bigger truck, the bigger vehicle has the right of way, and they're used to organized chaos. That's their culture. So they come over here, young men having watched their parents drive in India, and that's their exposure to how we drive. But here, I know that the cities can be chaotic. I drive through cities all the time. And this system we have, it's pretty organized, right? That's our culture. European culture. That's where we come from, right? Us in Canada, Britain. So it's a different culture. We do things differently. And so for them, though, it's no big deal. They drive like crazy. They come over here, they drive like crazy. That just doesn't fly. And, we're paying the price for it. I can't imagine, like mention my dentist, right? I've got an East Indian dentist. I can't imagine our government just having this attitude about East Indian dentists. Well, we'll just give you a 2-week course, or let's say a year course, and then you can be a dentist. No, they would never do that, right? They recognize that you got to be really smart to be a dentist. You got to be educated to be a dentist. They don't just hand out diplomas to dentists, right? It's not a diploma mill. So, but trucking, it's just like a mill. They just hand them out like candy, right? And I know why. They want to keep the price of goods cheap, right? That makes sense. The winners, when you have an oversaturated market of AZ drivers, the winners in that environment are, well, anybody who needs the service, right? Shippers, anyone who's got to ship something, businesses, corporations, they probably like this, like having cheaper delivery. And I hate to say it, but end consumers, we don't want to pay a lot of money for our goods, do we? So, you start passing the blame around. Well, who's to blame? Well, lots of people are to blame, including the consumer, us. So, that's the context. And that's probably the context where that fella, that fella in Alberta, the whole reason we have the MELT program, mandatory entry level training, in the first place. The Humboldt crash, right? So anyway, that's the video. Kudos to the CBC. I would love it if they keep on doing reporting like that. Maybe I'll become a fan. Anyway, till next time, like and subscribe if you haven't done that. Check out the video I was telling you about. And till next time, cheers.